If I had to sum up today's entire video in a single word, it would be villainous. There are some things in this world that just don't mix. You've got oil and water, me and bad hair days. But today's story is about what happens when you mix education and capitalism. Because it's about a company that has turned the concept of children learning things into a tech startup. And yes, it's as bad as it sounds. Tutors have been waging this battle for years now against this basically villainous e-tutoring company called Paper. Paper is an edtech company that very briefly exploded, but then spent the rest of the time absolutely imploding and just collapsing in on itself in a way that is almost spectacular. And it would almost be funny if not for the fact that it was making life harder for thousands of educators and an untold number of kids. And the worst part is, nobody's talking about this. But first, welcome. My name is D'Angelo, and I am your professor of elastic polymer mates, which is a very real degree that I definitely do have. Or maybe this is just me broadcasting myself talking in my room like YouTube used to be. And in today's video, we are going to go over this bitter battle that Paper has been locked in with its own employees. And we're going to look at the lies, the layoffs, and the labor violations that Paper has been getting away with, because very few people outside the world of education seem to realize that this company is so bad. They have been banned by multiple school districts, and at this point, they're even getting called out by the students themselves. These tutors have gathered together to fight back to the best of their ability on a subreddit, and if their reactions there to recent events show us one thing, it seems like Paper is only going to get worse from here. One of the only reasons Paper is still afloat right now is actually the pandemic. A couple years ago, the United States government allocated over $100 billion in COVID relief for education, and much of that money wound up in the pockets of the edtech industry. As the New York Times put it in 2022, much of the tutoring will take place through a computer screen, and for-profit companies and nonprofit groups are selling virtual tutoring services to school districts. And as it turns out, one of the most successful companies to come out of this deal is Paper, whose goal is to drive outcomes with high-impact tutoring. Here's Paper's co-founder explaining their shtick.
Phil had a local in-home tutoring company, so I was basically building some of the technology out for his business. And one day he approached me with this idea of taking the in-home tutoring experience and bringing it online in order to make it more affordable and accessible to students.
So ostensibly, this is all for the students, which technically sounds good on paper. Sorry. That's the last time I'll make that joke, I promise. Also, quick note about this guy. He's gonna wind up coming up later. And the other co-founder, the guy he mentioned who came to him with the idea, yeah, he's not even there anymore, which, as you're going to see, is a completely separate mess. Now, one thing I want to make clear is that no matter how much criticism I have for Paper, I am not criticizing the concept of high-dosage tutoring. According to this fact sheet from the Center for American Progress, it's actually a highly effective methodology for helping out kids. We should be spending money on high-dosage tutoring, but what we should not be doing is gleefully treating this as some sort of money-making opportunity for startups. Like, here's an article from Reach Capital just gloating about how much money has been invested into the industry. As you can see, the uptick was massive, and you can see that helping students isn't the only motivation here. Considering that edtech funding accounted for just 1% of overall capital invested in previous years, this is a notable step up for a sector that many venture capitalists once hesitated to venture into. Finally, you guys, it's safe. Let the post-pandemic education profiteering begin. So again, the concept of tutoring, great. The concept of for-profit tutoring companies, not as great. And as you're going to see, Paper is very much the latter, masquerading as the former. Because now it's time for a deep dive into everything wrong with Paper, or at least as much as I could fit in one video. And you'll see that school districts and students alike very quickly realize that something is wrong with this company and its educational offerings are sorely lacking, but not due to the fault of the tutors. So this article from Chalkbee exposes Paper's biggest lie. This online tutoring company says it offers expert one-on-one help. Students often get neither. Paper has told potential clients like the state of New Mexico that it provides a 1-to-1 student-tutor ratio. We tailor instruction for each student. With our 1-to-1 support, your students will receive the personalized attention they need. And this is what Paper said in a proposal to work with the state. In other words, Paper is going literally door to door across various school districts and being like, hey, bestie, can you pay us several $1 million? And like clockwork, the school districts are like, one-on-one tutoring? say less. Where do I sign? But maybe they should have said more, because as the article points out, paper argues that a student's experience is always one-on-one, since students typically aren't aware their tutor is working with others. So by one-on-one, they mean not one-on-one. Each tutor does, in fact, have multiple students, but because this is happening through the power of technology, the students don't realize this and are under the impression that they're being helped one-on-one. And Paper decided to sell that as one-on-one tutoring and somehow got away with it. The student's experience is one-on-one, said the co-founder, the one who's gone now. The tutor can be supporting multiple people. The idea is that the attention I'm getting is dedicated to me. This is literally just a company straight up lying to kids and misleading school districts so they can bag millions of dollars with no questions asked. You can find tutors on the subreddit where they're all pushing back against this, criticizing this one-on-one tutoring model. It probably shouldn't be surprising based on how shady Paper is about everything and how unbothered senior staff and execs are about lying to us employees on a daily basis, but they still have the audacity to tout one-on-one live help on the Paper website. We all know that this is not true. The top reply says it's extremely misleading and dishonest, and I hate that it's taking advantage of kids. So wrong. Not only are the tutors upset at the fact of being used in this lie, but they're also completely stressed out from having to work with so many students simultaneously, while maintaining the illusion of helping one at a time. Julia Drury, Paper's senior director of operations, seems to know that. At least when you're in that stressful experience of having 4 kids in your classroom, you know that you're making double pay. If you're doing the work of 2 tutors, then you should be paid for the work of 2 tutors. Or maybe, and I hope this doesn't sound too out there, you should use some of those millions of dollars you're receiving to invest in 2 tutors. But as it turns out, even the work of 2 tutors is a bit of a corporate euphemism there, because we're not talking about a tutor dealing with 3 or 4 kids or 5, 6, 7, or 8. See, despite the fact that the company's employee handbook tells tutors they should be able to work comfortably with 3 students at once, the same handbook also says there is no maximum number of students a tutor can be matched with simultaneously, which may explain why one tutor told Chalkbeat he had helped 12 students at once, while another math and science tutor said she'd gotten 10 students during a surge. You just keep switching tabs, the tutor said. I feel bad for some of these kids who are using the platform. And what's worse is Paper has the ability to cut down on these surges, but they're just choosing not to, because that would result in fewer students using Paper. They've resisted making changes that could cut down on tutor multitasking, such as adding a waiting room or scheduling option. The response to it was like, we don't want to turn students away. The quality of the service was always secondary. I don't even know how they can justify the one-on-one lie. Do they mean that there is only 1 tutor per student? Even that wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't say that a teacher in a classroom is giving one-on-one instruction to their entire class if you think about them individually. It's obvious that they're understaffing because they're worried about money and not lack of demand. Now, interestingly, the co-founder says school districts are informed that tutors may be working with multiple students at once through the sales process, and that districts are fine with that. But that sure is interesting considering that the Mississippi Department of Education, which is paying Paper $11 million, told Chalkbeat it did not know. A spokesperson for a California school district said they've never had a conversation regarding how many students a tutor would be helping, but they still paid Paper $2 million. So at the very least, they had no concerns about the quality of Paper's tutoring. Districts in Virginia and LA told Chalkbeat that they didn't learn tutors may help multiple students at once until after they had agreed to work with Paper and were putting the program in place. Nevertheless, they said Paper is an essential component of the district's plan for giving students individualized instruction. But not all school districts were having such a glossy time with Paper, because as you can see from this Ed Week Market Brief article, last year the state of New Mexico terminated its $3 million contract with Paper. And the insane part is they did this less than 3 months after the deal was signed. They said that Paper is not providing results in terms of engagement, support, or delivery of service to the state's students. And Paper actually responded to this, and our favorite former CEO said, "For us, the partnership never really kicked off. We were still in the early implementation phases. Ultimately for us, what's most important is that we support our students. And so if they want to go in a different direction with things, that's their prerogative." They're like, oh, sure, you've paid us $3 million and after 3 months, we were still in the early implementation stages. But whatever, if you want to leave, I guess. We're just trying to help the kids. By the way, New Mexico was just one of many and counting. Detroit School Board pulls contract with controversial online tutoring company Paper. Hundreds of Las Vegas and Tampa area schools drop Paper's online tutoring. And you've got the city of Boston calling Paper out for the number of students it was reaching for its cost. And our assessment of how it's been working, it hasn't been worth it. The district had budgeted millions of dollars in grants for Paper, but only a small fraction of students ever used it, said a spokesperson for the district. And that's the thing. Kids don't like Paper either. Paper tutoring, over 500,000 on a tutoring service few use. This is actually an article written by a student in the school paper. One sophomore said, "I've used it once and it honestly wasn't that helpful. It ended up being more confusing and I ended up saying, I'll just ask my teacher." And part of the reason that tutors are not able to be as helpful as they most likely want to be is because they're having to juggle up to a dozen students at a time, turning around questions and answers in a very quick fashion. Not only that, but Paper is encouraging tutors to help with things that are not even within their realm of expertise. A current tutor added, "I can't help a student with calculus or music theory, but I think eventually Paper will force me to." One of the students who was just getting kicked around from tutor to tutor said, "It can be really frustrating since I am just trying to get my homework done. Half the time I feel like I know more than the tutors, then their responses take a really long time, but I know it's not their fault since I think they are working with multiple people at one time." So yeah, even though Paper's website claims the student has the undivided attention of the tutor receiving one-on-one focus, even the kids are like, that cannot possibly be true. Here's another student paper article called "Paper Tutoring Met with Mixed Reviews." And another student said, "I kept getting bounced around between different tutors and none of them had the right answer. When I found one that gave me an answer, it was wrong." Another student said, "I wouldn't say it's very helpful because Paper just tells you, what do you think you can do? And you don't know what to do. They gave some good advice, but it wasn't really the advice that I needed. It was just grammar and stuff rather than content. These tutors literally are not being given time to do their job." And speaking of the tutors, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how they're being mistreated by Paper. So we've seen how the company is dealing with millions of dollars worth of consequences for its actions because students and school districts alike were like, what is going on here? But now you're going to see how, despite all the money Paper was making, they didn't even bother to pay tutors what they're actually worth. And instead, they just came up with new and creative ways of mistreating the people who are basically running the company. So people on the subreddit point out that there is a big discrepancy between the US pay rates and the Canadian pay rate. As a Canadian, it's very disheartening to see that the top tier Canadian employees make less than beginner US employees. Someone said, "I knew the gap was bad, but I didn't know that it meant this when applying to the raises." Shady, indeed. Another post asks, why are Canadian tutors paid less in comparison? Is the work any different? But the top comment says, listen, the last time we brought this up, everyone who fought back got fired. But Paper is only getting shadier from here. Meet Grow, the new era in high impact tutoring.
For the last 10 years, Paper has provided academic support to students who need it.
Have you though?
Today I'm excited to announce the launch of our Grow program. When a school district works with our Grow program, the students are actually learning.
A tutoring company just rolled out actually learning as a DLC patch because they are just flopping around at this point like a dying fish. School. Now with 100% more learning. Like, I can't make this up. But this new Grow program, which actually does encourage one-on-one tutoring, the thing that they said they had in the beginning but are now rolling out separately, it requires tutors to voluntarily give up their employment status to become contract workers for the same company. And there doesn't seem to be any pay range nailed down, so I'm not sure how tutors are even supposed to evaluate the proposition. It sounds like they are simply asking tutors to give up their employment rights for potentially fewer hours at lower pay. There's no reason the position has to be contract, except that contract workers can't unionize. As this one comment points out, it sounds like Paper's just using old aspects they used to do and are trying to present it as something new. And tutors said that if the pay is not actually worth the job, it's just a waste of time. Don't fall for their crap. They are popular with gaslighting and endlessly lying, so I wouldn't trust anything that comes out of their disgusting mouths. Imagine imagine your employees talking about you like this. I'm down to reduce, reuse, and recycle as much as the next person, but I'm pretty sure this paper belongs in the trash. But despite treating their tutors this way, Paper's like, guys, look, we're gonna use our tutors to push our product. Tutors share why they love working at Paper. Paper tutors share their proudest accomplishments. They're like, come on, guys, our tutors are super happy. Our work culture and opportunities are totally normal. An opportunity to literally give up your job. That way you can't unionize, but still work for us, just as a contractor with fewer rights. It's to the point where people are considering joining Paper, you know, because some people enjoy the prospect of potentially helping kids with school. And everyone in the comments is like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Do not come. They don't value tutors. It stopped being a decent place to work about 2 years ago. Now it's almost a morbid curiosity to see how long until the wheels fall off completely. Basically, they didn't develop a sustainable business model before their COVID money dried up. And now they're placing the burden of being profitable on tutors by pushing them to work faster and harder with less support than they've ever had, while stripping back benefits. And this person replied saying, I don't think developing a sustainable business model was ever part of their plan. Like most tech startups, they just wanted to show massive growth so that the founders could IPO and get out. Unfortunately, it looks like they weren't able to get that IPO part, so now they're just stuck with this and are making cuts left, right, and center. And as you can see from the Globe and Mail, paper cuts pile up as startup cuts staff for third time in 2023. So the two co-founders, they cut 87 people, 20% of its corporate staff, after cutting 100 people, which was 20% of its staff at that time, after cutting 81 corporate workers before that. Like, it is getting bad. And the lies just continue because Paper posted this statement saying they are privileged to be in a strong financial position. But that situation cannot change if we don't take the necessary steps to maintain it. But they were absolutely not in a strong financial position. And elsewhere, they said, while 2024 profitability is a realistic endeavor, it does not come without sacrifice. Y'all are not even actually making money. And yet you're trying to convince people that money is not the reason you're firing a bunch of people. And it wasn't just corporate employees either. Paper layoffs. Entire Canadian tutor workforce cut amid struggles. This actually happened just like a couple of weeks ago. Paper Education has laid off its entire Canadian tutor workforce, impacting hundreds of employees. Paper's recent challenges are a stark contrast to its rapid growth during the pandemic. As federal funding in the US began to diminish, many school districts halted or declined to renew their contracts with Paper, leading to a sharp decline in demand for its services. This is just awful. You can see the tutors on the Reddit 11 days ago saying, so it finally happened. Check your personal emails, Canadian tutor team. We've all been terminated. Why couldn't they let us know at the beginning of summer? Mind blowing. They could have given us a heads up instead of brutally making us wait for this. But also, I feel bad for the US tutors. Those of you who will still be working at Paper, they are not paying you nearly enough to continue doing this. And as it turns out, cutting 45% of the staff and all of their Canadian tutors was the decision of the new CEO. Because the one guy I've been quoting this whole time who I said is gone, he's been replaced by a new CEO named Rich Yang, the interim CEO. Between what and what, you may ask? Well, students on the subreddit seem to think it's between the downfall and just the complete disappearance of Paper, because they've pointed out that in previous roles, his claim to fame was to rapidly grow the company before selling it, allowing investors to cash out, and that the last company he worked for was basically just an essay mill, Course Hero, which has its own Wikipedia controversy page, and that the tutors believe he joins failing companies to artificially boost their short-term metrics so the investors can sell them off at a higher price. His appointment as CEO seems to essentially be a death knell for the company, an acknowledgement that Paper leadership is finished with their project and would like their golden parachutes. So make no mistake, the investors will all be fine, despite the fact that Paper was lying to school districts to pocket millions of dollars and also mistreating their tutors the whole time, including violating multiple labor laws in like increasingly unhinged stunts. Public service announcement for California tutors. Paper is currently being penalized for their failure to implement 10-minute breaks for employees in the state of California, which is against California labor standards, by the way. And this person claims that Paper was actually asking employees to sign a release before getting their money, despite the fact that that would be illegal because they just have to give you your money. There's nothing you should have to do beforehand. Paper should be making up for this mistake. To receive the compensation, Paper required tutors refused to sign an agreement that stated, "The information set forth in this agreement is strictly confidential and shall not be disclosed by the recipient." This is actually crazy that something on this scale was potentially happening, and yet the only source I can find was a school paper. How is paper getting away with this? Another post pointed out that the way paper was firing some of its tutors was also potentially violating labor laws. Another commenter said they're very likely to have violated employment laws in Canada as well, through both wrongful dismissal of employees along with abuse and lying about termination of employees with just cause. They're definitely not above lying to you or making up lies about you to get you fired. But by far, the most ridiculous labor law violation here is detailed in this post. The union organizers in Ontario filed an unfair labor practice claim against paper. The originating incident was a case of a member of management attempting to access a union Zoom session by falsifying their identity to mislead organizers. They were not successful. Our security remains intact. Unhinged behavior, says this person. Management is so scared of tutors because they know that it's the tutors, the unionized ones, who have the power to expose the company for what it is. And so paper actually responded to this to their employees, putting out this very generic statement of like, "Oh, yep, we found out that happened. Definitely won't happen again. Don't worry, guys." And remember, this guy, the co-founder who is still with the company, he put out a statement saying, "My goal has always been to keep open lines of communication. We've always strived to have direct contact with all of you through multiple touch points. I encourage you to give us feedback through these multiple touch points. I look forward to seeing and hearing from you. My door will always be open, except for the million other things that your employees are complaining about. But this thing that there could potentially be legal ramifications for, you're totally down to apologize over." Minus the part where he didn't really say sorry, I guess. But yeah, this guy's still there. The previous CEO and co-founder is gone. Not like that was much of a loss for these students. And now there's a possibility that the new CEO may attempt to run the company into the actual ground further. What really sucks the most, though, is just the way these students and tutors have been basically pawns in this whole scenario. Does anyone else feel like a fraud? I've been a tutor on and off for many years, and I seriously have ethical qualms about working for paper. They sell themselves as the answer to impoverished and understaffed school districts, yet they specifically told me to prioritize speed way above quality, not to do more than the bare minimum no matter how much help a kid needs, not to call out plagiarized work. I suspect they want the kids to keep resubmitting, and that's why we are not to point out all mistakes in a paper. In the end, local politicians can get applauded for a fast, easy solution, and paper makes bank while kids, teachers, taxpayers, and paper staff get screwed. Someone said, "I feel very icky about it. I feel terrible about it." It sounds almost word for word like what I was thinking. And while just sticking to a few major mistakes in a paper at once can be effective teaching, in the context of the rest of paper's shady practices, it very much seems like something designed to artificially inflate the amount of time kids are having to spend using the product, since none of these kids want to use the product in the first place. There's this one post from a student in the support forums saying having more one-on-one support from tutors would really help maintain that connection. I'm assuming that tutors help multiple students at a time, and sometimes it gets a bit frustrating. It takes a long time to get stuff done for me, so if I'm in class and quickly need help and the tutor takes too long, it can be annoying and I have to end the session. What I'm currently doing is going to my school resources after school, which usually gets a bit difficult due to busy schedules. See, paper lying to these students is not okay. They know we work with more than one student at a time. They aren't stupid children. They know what's up. And if you're wondering what the future looks like for the remaining tutors, it's not great. Paper sent out this email and they're like, "Yeah, wow, that totally sucks that we fired all those people. But anyways, back to school." I legitimately felt sick after reading that email. How can they even sleep at night? I have a feeling they'll slowly drag US tutors along until they can mass fire us. I'm based out of California, so I'm not betting on them keeping us much longer. And for the tutors who are there, as of less than a week ago, they now apparently are being given 15 minutes or less to review the students' essays. It's extremely unrealistic, and students are going to notice the drop in quality. In all seriousness, I'm worried I won't be able to keep up anymore. It's stressing me out. So I don't really think it takes a crystal ball for me to predict This company is definitely not going to exist in like just a couple of years. Or if they do, it'll be in some massively different format than the way it is now. What all of this really proves is kind of what I said at the beginning, which is that capitalism and education are a horrible combo. Because according to tutors, paper actually used to be significantly less terrible. Hours given were fairly consistent, you only had 1 to 2 students at a time, but it wasn't until people started speaking up about the fact that Canadian tutors were being paid less than Americans that things started to take a shift. That was just one of the first shady things that tutors noticed, and then as you saw in this video, it was all downhill from there. TLDR, it was far less stressful, but then when HQ saw tutors were talking and standing together, they responded by tightening their stranglehold and showing that they don't care about abusing their power. The whole for-profit initiative and the for-profit tutoring company completely ruined any hope of actually helping kids or letting these tutors do their darn jobs. And I can't even sit here and be happy about paper's downfall because now these tutors are without jobs. And the ones that remain are having to do multiple jobs at once. That is why I wanted to make this video, because this is not a trending topic at all. I've never really seen this in the mainstream media, but there you have it. And hopefully everyone involved, except the investors and the CEO, can find some alternative path to either helping people or getting the help that they need. Because clearly paper is not and never has been the solution that they were presenting themselves as. But that's my take on the situation. Dave's take is that he's just going to wait for the sequel, Paper 2, Catching Fire. And I'm excited to hear your take. I mean, this is the part of the video where a layman would ask you to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. But I will ask you to enroll, evaluate the video, and submit your feedback. Because I am, of course, running a 100% completely all the way, okay, maybe not unaccredited, but hopefully better than paper, university. Probably. Just ask anybody in the student body and they'll confirm it for you. We're totally legit. And as for me, whether you'll see me in 24 hours or 24 months is honestly anyone's guess, but until then, thanks for watching. Your homework for today is to avoid profiting off of basically the pandemic and children's need for education.